Starting. Now we're starting. Okay. Hello and welcome to the Flipping and Wholesaling Houses in New York show. I am Michael Pinter. I think we're starting now. I am Michael Pinter, where I teach you how to start flipping or wholesaling houses, or if you are already doing it, how to grow your business. So, got a question that I didn't really understand, and then I asked for an explanation. He said, for example, let's say you have a motivated seller willing to sell their property. You also know a buyer that's willing to buy the property. Instead of assigning your portion of the contract to an end buyer, an agreement could be written up stating that the buyer will pay X amount at closing to you. Both you and the end buyer sign the agreement and send it over to a notary. In this scenario, you find the buyer first, just make sure the seller's property matches. Yeah. Listen, everything's great if you know the buyer and you trust the buyer 100%. The problem is how to make it legally binding, right? If the agreement that you're talking about is not legally binding, and it sounds to me like it's not, and just notarizing something does not make something legally binding. I can write a contract right now to sell something that I don't have and get it notarized. It's not legally binding. I didn't own the property. So that was just an example. The point is, notarizing doesn't make anything legal. All notarizing does is say that the notary, and I'm a notary, attests that the person who says they're signing it is signing it. The notary doesn't attest to anything that's in the agreement, right? I can write anything in agreement. A notary doesn't have a clue what's in it. All they're doing is looking at my ID and saying that you signed it. The point of this whole arrangement that we do is to make it legally binding. So when things go sideways or really down the toilet, that there's some repercussions to it. So if you're just going to get a buyer who says, I'm going to sign something and pay you something for it, and then he changes his mind at the last second, you're on the hook to close on that, right? A lot of people don't understand that, and it's dramatically different in New York, where there are no contingencies in the contract in my contracts. So if you're in some other state where you have a contingency to get out, do whatever you want. I don't care. But in New York, there's no way out of the contract, and in essence, there's no way out of the assignment either. That is why we do assignments of contract, to make the buyer legally bound to perform, to do what they say they're going to do. If you want to do it other ways, it's probably not going to be legally binding. And I can tell you, even if the buyer is the best guy in the world, the idea that you're going to find the buyer first who says, I'm going to pay you X to go find me properties, and then rely on that to go into contract with a seller and hope that the buyer likes it, hope that the buyer is okay with it, hope that the buyer has the money for it, hope that the buyer is going to close when you need him to. Remember, as a wholesaler, you're in the middle of this thing. And sometimes that's a bad place to be, right? Very often a buyer will tell you something, you represent it to the seller. Buyer says, I'm ready to close on Tuesday next week. You tell the seller, let's schedule the closing Tuesday next week. Then the buyer calls you on Monday and says, sorry, can't close. Need another week. You're in the middle. You're screwed. So you need some way to compel that buyer to perform and do what they say they're going to do, which is why we use the documentation we use, because we want it to be compelling, legally compelling, not just that the guy wants to do it, that the guy knows he's compelled legally to do it, or he could lose his deposit, which you should take a significant deposit from a buyer, or worse, right? I mean, you can't compel somebody to buy, but you can compel them to forfeit their deposit. And if they have enough money in it, then and they're not fantastically wealthy where they don't care about it, then it's going to be an incentive to close. That is why we use the documentation we use, right? And again, notarization does not do anything, right? It really doesn't matter. So you can't sue somebody because he notarized a document saying he was going to pay you money. The judge will laugh that out of court. I don't think any attorney would take it. But if an assignee of a contract and he doesn't perform, you probably can't sue him. Your damage is limited to whatever your deposit is. So the documents we use because they compel people to do what they say they're going to do. We get a real contract from a seller because we don't want the seller to say, hey, I changed my mind. Now, if a seller changes their mind, you can't sue them. Buyer changes their mind, you can keep the deposit. But in essence, you don't want to use side agreements. You want to use legally binding documentation. That's it. It's really that simple. You can use multiple contracts, so double closing contracts in essence, but I believe assignment of contract is the easiest thing to do. Now, the problem is when the seller won't make it assignable. So again, if the seller will let you assign it to an entity, to a new entity, you can then sell that entity. Seller cannot prevent you from selling your entity, right? So if I say I'm going to buy it in my overarching company's name or in a 123 Main Street LLC, and then I create 123 Main Street LLC, I can sell. I can sell the LLC. But understand, the buyer sort of has to understand how that works, and the buyer's attorney. And very often there's so many idiot attorneys I can't even count them. Dozens of thousands of idiot attorneys. So you get an idiot attorney who will go, well, I don't want to buy your LLC because maybe you have pending litigation on it. That's stupid. I just created the LLC yesterday. How would I possibly get into a lawsuit about it? And the address matches the property you're buying. So experienced attorneys should not have a problem with it. Idiot attorneys or attorneys who don't really do real estate, right? And I can't tell you how many times this happened. A seller will call their cousin or they'll call an attorney they used for something completely unrelated matter, maybe a trust and estate attorney who does real estate. I do it all. I take care of it. And they don't know what they're doing. That happens more often, unfortunately, than I can recall. And they'll come up with some stupidity about something that's not a problem. I mean, I have a deal in the midst of that I'm not going to talk about, but attorneys just are not, in my opinion, are not the attorneys that are not experienced with real estate really shouldn't do real estate, and attorneys who and sellers who use attorneys that are not experienced stand to not make as much money as they should, or stand to kill a deal with a really good buyer. It happens a lot, right? More than you know, where deals die. Now, if you handle it and preempt it, right? I have a situation now where it's a novation situation and it's a little complicated, and I really want to speak to the attorney, and I'm already getting pushback from the attorney's paralegal. Well, he should really speak to your attorney. And I'm like, listen, I want to explain this so your boss understands this, right? I can articulate it better than my attorney can, right? How innovation works, what's going to happen, how he is going to be doing more work, how I am going to pay him for additional legal fees, how all these things fall on me, how your client has no downside here. So these are things that I can articulate better than my attorney can. But you get all these crazy attorneys in New York who I don't want to talk to the buyer. I only want to talk to the buyer's attorney. And that's just stupid thinking, right? It's really idiotic thinking. And I understand sometimes they'll get a counterparty, so a buyer when their client's selling or a seller where their client's buying, who's going to just ramble or who's going to talk stupidity or doesn't know how to work. But talk to them for a minute and you'll realize that. If you talk to me for a minute, you'll realize I know what I'm talking about. And I want to make it clear to you so you understand what happens. So, and in novations, you really have to preempt the seller's attorney. I lost my first deal because I didn't preempt the seller's attorney. And on a novation, the seller's attorney is really doing work twice, right? They're doing a novation contract that's novatable to me, and then when I find the new buyer, they're doing a new contract. And the guy's attorney was like, "Well, why should I do work twice?" And she was right? And the answer is because I'll pay you for it, right? All the additional fees fall on me as the buyer, even if I'm novated out. All the middle amount of money, any repairs, any fees, any costs fall on me, and any additional money made also comes to me. So that's how it works. So I understand that you're getting paid more. So how do we get here? Oh, so you need to use right. So this idea that I'm going to use some document that I came up with that I thought sounds good is a terrible idea, right? And I don't want to talk badly about it unless you completely and 100% trust the buyer. Not just trust him that he's not going to screw you, but trust him that he has the money and is going to buy what you bring him. And it's not so simple, because even if a buyer is a really good guy, he may not like what you bought, and you may say, "Well, you told me you would buy anything with 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms," and he may go, "Well, this property is in a horrible location. I don't want it." So, just for an example, so I would say that you should definitely use an assignment of contract, which is legally binding to the buyer. He has to close. He's taking your place, in essence, legally not taking your place. That's an ovation, but he is now the assignee of this contract. He gets all the benefits of it and assumes all the obligations of it. I hope this was helpful. If you're interested in all the ways I can help you, go to howtoflip.com. wholesalingnewyork.com or learntoflipandwholesale.com. If you are watching on YouTube, please subscribe. If you're watching on any media channel, please click the thumbs up. The likes have really been helping. A lot more people want to watch my videos, so thank you very much. I post 5 times a week, so please, please, please ask me any questions via the comments. It does not have to be, your question could have nothing to do with the video you're watching. It could just be some question that came into your head. I'm happy to answer all these questions. Your questions give me topics to talk about. I usually draw a blank unless without questions, so keep the comments coming with questions. If it's something simple, I'll just reply with an answer. If it's something that I covered recently, I'll send you a link to videos, and if it's something new, I'll do a brand new video on it. Thank you very, very much for watching. Hello.
Hi, Mike.